G'day legends, welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Tape, a podcast where we talk with rad people doing things within the Australian mountain bike industry. This episode is chatting with Mick Williams from Williams Racing Products and Lachy McKillop from SRAM. They are usual guest hosts for this episode. Before we move on to the topics and what we are going on about, let me thank some supporters for this podcast because without them, this wouldn't be doable. First up, we have Trek. Trek make one of the best XC bikes, XC race bikes you can possibly ever ride. It is so good that another big brand emulated it very, very closely. The Super Caliber offers the IsoStrut technology that gives you around 80 to 70, 80 millimeters travel in the rear. It acts as a suspension strut as well as being a structural part as well. The bike is super light, super stiff. It is everything you could possibly need to rip up your local XC races. I've had a chance to ride one of these things and man, it just does everything so well. It rides almost like a road bike. You put the power down and it just leaps forward. Handles really well. Absolute race machine. Love that bike. If I could get one and have a whole fleet, I think I'd ride that thing probably the most out of anything. Franked are a apparel company hailing out of Western Australia. They make some of the most lightest weight jerseys. The pants are super comfortable. And for 2023, they've really upped their design game. So head over to franked.com.au, use Beyond the Tape 10, let them know that you've gone over there from the podcast and get yourself some really, really high quality kit for some really good value. Fist offer some of the best gloves in the market, and coming into these colder months, you want to get onto the freezing fingers gloves. What a mouthful. They offer enough protection to keep your hands warm on the top while keeping their signature Cordura palms in the bottom. So you can feel the bars. Everything feels the same, but your hands aren't getting freezing, which is amazing. I used them today when I went on a bit of a photo shoot with some mates. It was absolutely pissing down. And bike got muddy. Everything was trashed. Thankfully, I had some shred cleaner in the shed. Got the dirt off within seconds. The degreaser cleaned up the drivetrain and my derailleur's all working perfectly. And then I chucked some of the after spray on next. And man, the mud just falls off after that. Lead Out Spots offer some of the best tools in the game. If you haven't had a look yet, check out the new tool from Abby. They made it for SRAM. It's a little 3-piece T-tool. Kind of reminds me of the old BMX days. Anyway, it's a sick little tool. I'm sure they'll be coming in soon. And yeah, Lead Out Sports are your best go-to distributor or shop or, importer for these goods. They offer nothing but the best. Tailored Trails, man, I am still peaking off of my trip down to Derby. There is nothing better than rocking up to the airport, seeing Mart's beautiful face. He comes and grabs your bags. You jump on the bus. He takes you to your destination. It's all pre-planned. It was so easy. It was a real high-end experience. The one thing I didn't quite understand until I actually got there was how much hype that Mark and Brendan give you. They keep the hype high no matter whether it's rain, hailing, snowing, whatever Tassie has to offer in terms of bad weather. Doesn't matter when you got those two around. They show you all the best tracks for the best weather conditions and just keep everyone hyped. It is so good. So get down there and experience Tassie with Tailored Trails. Man, when it's muddy, dirt surface keep the mud out of my eyes. 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, Australian-made mud guards. You can get their own unique designs, or if you want something that is uniquely yours and you want to throw one of your own designs on there, they do that too. So hit up Alan at Dirt Surfers. And again, if you want to customize your bike and keep it really, really cool and unique, hit up Capped Out Caps. They offer some of the best high-quality laser-etched top caps you can possibly ever get. I'm super stoked on mine, and if you want to grab one of the Beyond the Tape ones, then yeah, head over to the website and grab one for yourself. In this episode, we are chatting about SRAM Transmission. We're talking about mixed gearbox. We're just talking a bit about Otter. It's a bit all over the place, but we're just having a general catch up and a chat. So I think there's a lot of useful information in here about transmission. and gearboxes and everything else that's going on. So super rad episode. As per usual, grab a beer, grab a water, grab a wine, grab whatever makes you happy, and enjoy the episode. Spooky.
Weird. Anyway.
Bike industry,
anyway, should we get started?
Yeah.
No worries, mate.
Boys, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Darren. Has been a little bit, I reckon. Like I was going to ask the last time we did one.
It's been exactly one bike for Lachy, so that's about 2 months, I believe.
Have I got a new bike? Yeah, I've got a new bike.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Was it January? It was January.
Yeah,
I think it was because I was at home. So,
it was whenever Nationals was.
Yes.
Might have been early Feb then, hey?
Just after Nationals, I reckon.
Yeah.
Feb. But, you got a new bike, Lachy? Talk to us.
I got a pivot. I needed a bike for transmission launch. And I just like kind of shorter travel things. And I've never spent a lot of time on a DW Link recently, like with the whole new shock going. What was the other bike I was looking at? There was two bikes I was looking at. I can't remember what the other one was. I've figured out my reach numbers, like exactly the reach that I want now, and it was just bang on. And then the only thing I was like, transmission won't work on Super Boost, and I found out it does work on Super Boost. I was like, this is easy. So yeah, it's 120, 130 in the low setting with a reach adjust in it, and it's awesome. Just it doesn't ride like it's got more travel at all. It's definitely a 120 mil bike, but I can put myself in situations that I would die on a 150 bike. The shock took a little bit of time to figure out what to do tune-wise, but it feels sick. Yeah.
What did you do tune-wise? Did you have to lighten it?
So I went I'm a big fan of light compression and light rebound. So it's an L1 compression with a progressive rebound, which is the first time I've run that. So I've heard good things from a couple of boys in the office on that. And it is, to be honest, I can't wait to actually build a bigger shock with it. Fucking amazing. And then I've got the hydraulic bottom out body on it as well, because it's an air shock. So the progressive just, I don't know, it's crazy. Like it doesn't give you more travel, but you're just in the usable point of travel more. It's just so smooth. And I think because the compression's soft, it's kind of this like snake that eats itself of softness. Yeah.
Is progressive rebound, it's faster when it's more compressed?
I believe it's faster when it's more compressed, yeah. And then like eases out. It gets you back into your stroke faster.
Okay. Yeah.
Until it towards the end. I believe also it's named because it's suited to progressive bikes, from what I understand. And that pivot is pretty progressive. Like even their stock shock comes, the Fox ones that comes with is filled with tokens out of the box. I think you can only go down. So it's a pretty progressive feel. So
it
seems to suit the bike really well. So
they're a pretty rad bike, eh?
Dude, it's super fun. Yeah, I'm a big fan. It's just a fun do everything. It pedals uphill amazing. Better than what I've had on 120 mil bikes before. It's just I just want a bike for winter that's just like, I just want to ride it all day kind of thing, like 3-4 hours, middle of the day when it's cold, and just go mountain biking.
See.
Yeah.
What's been happening on your end, Mick? You're still in New Zealand?
Yeah. Been super busy. Since we last chatted, what have I done since we last chatted? There's been a pretty substantial gearbox update, and then a fair bit of it was actually spent racing. So,
we actually saw each other in the flesh.
What?
Oh yeah, we did too. Yeah. You really got me out of a stick there, Lachy. Thank you again.
I didn't do shit. It was all good.
I guess as a side point for those that don't know what we're on about, I sheared my cranks at Crankworks in speed and style. So hats off to the crew at SRAM for sorting me out a new set of cranks. I really, really appreciated that, because I would have been screwed otherwise. But it's been a busy time doing a bit of racing, which has felt good. Probably not super fit at the moment, but it was a good excuse to sort of put what I've been working on at least kind of to the test, and the gearbox into some conditions that you probably might not practice in. That was a bit of fun. Did summer series Crankworks, and then straight into Rotorua Crankworks, and then a couple other sort of local races as well. But it's been good. It's been very busy. Like, the gearbox has kind of been my main focus, just because particularly when you race stuff, it becomes very apparent very quickly what needs updating, and or just added in general, what some sticking points might be. But it's been really good.
Is it operational now?
It's okay. Operational. I might as well go sort of through the backstory, I guess, instead of sort of beating around with it. But so the first gearbox, like the version 1, I had in from January all the way through to the start of March, and that was really good. It handled it, but I was running it just in single speed. So the problem that I was having with it was that it was twisting some of the shifting pins, and I presume that might be a bit of an issue on the outset. And running it just in single speed wasn't sort of the end of the world, because you can still test its structural integrity. And to be honest with you, it was probably a good kind of phase, instead of too many variables going on. Just limit the denominators and just focus on the structural integrity. So that held up superb. Like, I didn't have any issues, which is really good. But like I was saying, the shifting pins were twisting. Hence why I kind of had that clear polycarbonate hatch at the front. And it was kind of weird, because what I think was happening was, if you look through the hatch, the pins were all straight. But then when you put down the power, it kind of felt a bit soft. And I think what was happening was the pins were twisting, but it wasn't going past its modulus of elasticity. It would come back to straight. But when you put down the power, they were twisting and just coming back. So I wanted to fix that. So I got a whole bunch of new parts. I kind of had a little bit of a change of thought, which I was really stoked with, probably back in February or something. And that was basically put everything on one axle and basically make up my own BMX gyros to mount the retention springs and the shifting mechanism. So everything could rotate on one solid axle. And it was just sort of the shifting mechanism that could gyro around it. So that was one of the main reasons, I was at home in February to make up some of that stuff, put it in typical fashion, put it in literally a day or so before, went up to Rotorua, and I did a lap or two of Skyline, and it was fine. Got up to Rotorua, and it very quickly kind of became apparent that I needed to address a few things. I've got a list in my phone that's huge, and I've only really last week sort of got around to getting to them all. But this one had, the first one, like I was saying, it was just running shift or single speed, so I didn't have a shifter on it. Whereas this one, version 2 one at Rotorua, had electronic shifting, which was sick. One of the big problems I had was that the shifter box, the stepper motor, where it was housed was half a mil off the tensioner, which is fine in the bike park, but obviously if the case fills full of mud, contingency of only half a mil fills up pretty quick. So what was happening was for those that didn't see it, like it was a mud bath, particularly like on the first day of practice. It was very, very wet. Probably some of the wettest conditions I've ridden. Some of it was pretty fun. Some of it was pretty death. But yeah, it was only a couple of 100 meters in, and I got to this chute and I went to back pedal, and I pedaled backwards, but then went to like reapply pressure on the front foot, and I had like half a crank worth of slop before it would actually take up any tension. And instantly I knew what was happening. So what would happen was like you'd back pedal and the tensioner would essentially take up tension and jam itself between like itself and the motor, which was really, really problematic. I only got one run in on Friday anyway, and they cancelled practice. So addressed that. And then anyway, I could keep going on, but basically I really needed to do some more time on it before. In hindsight, I probably just should have ran the older version, but it's easy to say. I mean, it was good going there with that version and putting it through race conditions, because it just kind of expedited the point in time that you find out things that you need to change. It was good. Probably took 2 or 3 weeks post Rotorua to really address everything. I was having this like it felt like it was sort of skipping gears, and I was fucked if I knew what it was. Like originally I thought it was like the output cog on the gearbox that I machined. I thought the tooth profile was wrong. I thought that was what was skipping, and then filed that down. That was all right. And then like I was just chasing my tail. Like, yeah, it kind of had me buggered. So like when you put down power, it would what sounded like skipping gears. And it wasn't until I got back, probably a week or so after I got back, I pulled apart like the bottom bracket within a bottom bracket. And what was happening was like the outer bottom bracket casing that like goes on like to your direct mount crank mechanism, that doesn't have a preload collar on it. So what was happening was the splines inside were actually skipping a spline. And what sounded like skipping gears was actually a spline skipping, and it would skip to the next one and grab. So, yeah, it wasn't until I pulled it apart that I was like, there's some aluminium filings in here. It's not good.
Just weight savings as you ride, essentially.
Yeah, I was a little bit bummed out because the remedy, I've got a proper like sort of double-sided D-shackle thing made up for it that'll do it. But for now, it's just got a Repco hose clamp providing enough compression. And the reason I was a bit pissed was that I actually had the hose clamp with me at Rotorua. It was just a spare in my toolbox. But it was one of those things, like I guess when you're in a heightened scenario of like at a race, you're always rushed and a bit anxious and all that type of stuff. Like it was one thing that I just didn't really think to check, mainly I guess because it's very internal, so I didn't want to strip it all down. But anyway, just like I said, kind of it was good stuff to have happen, I guess, because he just forces you to figure it out. But at the moment, pretty well fixed the massive list in my phone full of problems.
Sick.
Anyway,
nice.
Sorry, that was a bit of a unload, but
that was good. I've the last one I feel you didn't say enough, and I was like, I want to know more about this, but I wasn't. Do you want to push it? Isn't sure if it's top secret?
No, nothing's top secret. Not mindful, not just to bloody I don't know, just go down a rabbit hole and talk heaps of shit. But anyway,
hey, the people love it. The people love it when you go down those rabbit holes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff's just super, and this is I'm just really committed to riding this thing as much as I possibly can, and not just riding it, racing it too. And it does kind of give me a bit of I don't know what the right word is, a bit of anxiety, or even post race post-race blues or something if it doesn't work out. But like that's the whole premise behind it, kind of like put your money where your mouth is, and even though it's a prototype, understand that it's a prototype and it's the only way to make it a sort of fully fledged product. Like there's a lot of companies out there that just kind of come out with something and force it down your throat. But I don't know. It's even simple stuff like there's like in the drive shaft. Like I didn't even think about it at the time, but I need to make like one side a left-hand thread because it has a propensity just to undo itself. So like, okay. So it's just like little obscure things like that you just sort of fix along the way. But yeah, anyway.
I love that stuff. The amount of random stuff that's broken for me racing, like not like product fault stuff as much as just stuff you bash, you know what I mean? Because you take lines and stuff you wouldn't normally if you're racing. There's so much to it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And even so like I had the slipping problem. So that was quite problematic because like I couldn't really put any power down. But then the thing that I noticed, like literally after run one, was just how I had like the shifting cable routed. I thought I was being real smart, and I had it routed like nice, tucked up, like underneath the bash guard. And because it was so wet, I cased the fuck out of this stump, and it bent bash guard. And what it did, like it instantly just kinked the cable. And I was like, that was really dumb.
Well, you need those things, right? Like you're never going to find them unless you're sitting there like in your work stand hammering the bottom. Obviously.
And it's one of those things too. Like even in a bike park, like that bike park environment's so controlled. Even like you just don't find that stuff because if it was that wet, you just wouldn't go out riding or the park would be closed. And even as simple as like you think you crank hard in practice, but in a race or qualifying or whatever, that's when you really crank hard and it's like, oh, this fucking thing's slipping. Like didn't notice it in practice, and it was like, well, you probably wouldn't because you just, cruising to the top of the trailhead or something. You're not over the bars really doing a sprint. So
it's the same thing too, right? Like say you get offline, and so I'm saying with the braking shit, like if I get offline in a race, I'm still going hard to the bottom. If I get offline at my local trails, I kind of cruise for a bit after, like, that was dumb, just fucking chill out. Whereas racing is just like, nah, we're still hammering this thing. So, and then you're on a different line riding shit you haven't ridden all week and just bash. Yeah.
So anyway, it's been a very eventful couple of months since we last chatted.
Yeah,
it's been very busy.
The Trinity is in production.
It is, in limited production. But
it's exciting.
Yeah, probably shouldn't have launched that during trying to race Crankworks because I had to turn the phone off. It was a little bit wild, but anyway, it was good.
I'm so keen. Like all the stuff Nigel puts out looks fucking amazing. So yeah.
Nigel's been doing a lot of work recently.
That's sick. It's really cool. Should we perhaps chat about the gigantic release from SRAM that might have happened in the last few weeks with their new transmission stuff?
We can.
It seems like everyone's talked about everything.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, I'll sort of preface this was like, I'm not the PR guy, so I'm the tech guy. So there are some better PR-based podcasts out there. But it all launched when we were in Roto, actually, which was hectic. I don't think I've ever been at a big event like that when there's been like a big release. So Worrells, who's the distributor over there, they actually teed up a bunch of dealer training the morning of. And they all went in early before the site actually opened. Pretty exciting. Like I've been around when stuff launched, but they've been around when like people are there and it's launched. You know what I mean? So, and they like an inkling of what it was, but they hadn't actually seen it. So that was pretty massive. it definitely, I think like last Axis blew up the internet. It's a really funny one. Like I feel the way they did the media release, I don't think could have gone any better. But then I also think because it went so well, I think there's like a lot of skepticism in the market, which is like, for me, frustrating, which is a bit of a side note. But yeah, like it's just a totally different system. They've ditched the hanger. Like I fucking hate derailleur hangers. I think they're a terrible, I would say they're a terrible design, and like Mick would know more about the design of it, but like there's just so many variations of where the derailleur can be. And there's so many situations where I've like had a bent hanger or can't find the hanger, or it's, you know, you're on wheels manufacturing and the hanger you need is like the reverse of the one that you found. And like, there's just a whole bunch of stuff with that, right? And then UDH came out and UDH like rectified a lot of that and kind of at least put it in like in a position that we know, you know what I mean? Like there's one less variable of like, cool, the hole's there and that's relative to the axle here, which hopefully means that your cassette is about there. Makes everything, it kind of cuts down on the stacking of like variables that you have for the drivetrain or tolerances a little bit. And this kind of just goes one step further. So it gets rid of the hanger, it mounts in the UDH. Yeah, and then like everyone's been worried about strength and all that kind of stuff. Like it's super robust. So I've had it on my e-bike since we last spoke, so a couple of months. It's done all the media stuff. It's been stood on, it's been jumped on, it's been everything. It's been ridden a hell of a lot too. It's been bashed into a lot of shit. Like the thing actually looks pretty beat up, to be honest. But I haven't had to change anything on it, which is what's really, really crazy. I think the biggest thing is once you get used to it, now that two of my bikes have it, you just don't think about it because it just does its job. There's, you know, it's not like every time you shift, you're like, oh, it's amazing. You just get used to being so smooth all the time. As a system, the cassette is the narrow, wide chain rings the whole way up, except for the setup cog. The chain has changed shapes, much like the road stuff as well. So a little bit thinner. It actually has a little more flex side to side in it as well. And so when you're shifting, the chain will time itself to the cassette, to the actual shift ramp on it. So you may not shift exactly when you press the button, but because you don't need to let the power off, it'll just shift up. And the more power you put down, the better. The narrower wide holds the chain ring. The chain on the sprocket, I suppose you'd call it. So you can like well and truly shift under full load, which is crazy. I probably noticed it the most on the e-bike. And I'm doing a bunch of stuff just on kind of e-bikes and motor output and power through a drivetrain lately. I was shifting up and down that thing at like 700 watts, and it was fine, which is crazy. You know what I mean? Like that's just not something you should be able to do. So yeah, it's a really different system. It needs a different way to set it up. It's not really backwards compatible. I'm actually working on a thing right now for work that's literally measuring all the stuff and like why it's different, because I feel it's like no one actually believes you when you say stuff doesn't work. Now I'm just going to kind of be like, this is why it's different and this is why it doesn't work. And we've tried it. So I've tried it, so you don't have to.
I've got a hammer. I've got a hammer and duct tape, mate. Fucking let's go, baby.
The backwards compatible thing is funny, but yeah, it's a whole new system. It's expensive. Like not everyone is going to be able to afford it, but that's fine. I'm sure at some point it'll end up trickling down. You know, I mean, this technology's really, really cool, but I think it's kind of thrown a lot of tradition out the window in the way people think a bike should be set up. And I think that scares people. But I think once, you know, you actually either for the mechanics out there, go and set it up and you're like, holy shit, that literally took me a couple minutes and it's done. And there's no here or there with the limit screw or here or there with the barrel adjuster or here or there with the trim adjuster. Well, there's still trim adjuster, but not even to the extent they used to be. You'll be amazed. And then for the rider, I haven't had anyone like get off it and be like not blown away by it. And I think that's where with the media side of things, it was kind of hard because I don't think anyone really had anything bad to say. With a lot of miles on it, I think the original goal for that was like 1,000 miles for each rider. So it wasn't like a short-term jump around the car park test. It was like, go do 6 months on this thing and give it hell. But yeah, it's it's awesome. Like I can't really speak it up enough, and I'm kind of like finding it hard to keep saying it because it just does its job. Like I'm not trying to justify myself or other people. It just works well. And if you got the cash and you want to upgrade drivetrain, do it.
I think that's probably a sign of a good product though. Like when you don't have to justify it to yourself. Like as an example, I guess I was talking to a friend of mine only the other day, and he was mucking around with heaps of different front tires, and he probably tested like, I don't know, it'd be at least half a dozen, I guess. And then the way he described one of them, it was like, yeah, like when I put it on, I'm just not thinking about whether I have front end grip or not, which probably means I've got front end grip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The best products are the ones you never have to use, or the ones you never think about when using. Like, they just exist.
I think like it's a massive like stake in the ground of like when this launched, and then like for new cyclists going forward who can get on the tech, like it's, you know, we all know how to shift gears, right? Like you kind of back the power off a little bit and then you let the shift go up, and it might be mechanical, electronic, or whatever. You kind of time it whenever you kind of can, you know. Sometimes we have bad shifts, but you know, for the most part, we're conscious of it. You don't have to do it with this. And that's probably the thing that took me the longest to get used to. And then like today when I jumped back on my gravel bike, which has normal Eagle, I was going up this like sand climb with slicks, so I'm an idiot. And I was trying to bang through gears and it just was not having a good time. You know what I mean? And I think for stake in the ground now to riders who get on this, who are new cyclists, it's going to make cycling easier for everyone. And I know that was a massive pitfall for when I was at the shop. People just do not understand gears. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand, they probably understand how it works. They don't understand when to shift, and these little nuanced ideas of like, oh, you need to back it off a little bit to let it go up the gear. But then you need to pedal again once it's going. Like it makes sense to us who've done it so long, but to explain that to like a newbie, it's just like, yeah, actually it is really silly. And I think the coolest thing with this for me is that for new cyclists, it's going to benefit a lot of people as well. So I think that's kind of it. There's heaps with it. Like there's heaps of tech. Like if there's any specific questions, please shoot. It's just really cool. Like I'm really excited, but it just does its job. Yeah.
So you've been on it for 3 months.
Yeah.
In those 3 months, you've had on 2 bikes. How many rear triangles have you had to replace on those?
Oh, mate, fuck, none. And like that honestly, like that's probably number one question I get is like, and that was probably the biggest at Crankworks, you know what I mean? Is like, oh, you know, that means that I think because everyone has in their head that the hanger was sacrificial, that now the frame has to be sacrificial, because obviously the video is everyone standing on the derailleur. So it's like there needs to be a sacrificial part. I don't necessarily believe that there needs to be a sacrificial part in that, especially when the mounting point is on the rear axle, which is super strong. But, you know, frame manufacturers have been aware of this for quite some time. So it's not just like, oh, we just randomly made this UDH and now like, I've got one here. Here's a derailleur we can just slap on. You know what I mean? Like, hope they're strong enough. Like, come on, guys, this has been going on for like quite, you know, OEs and everyone play with stuff years and years and years out. So, frames are pretty fucking strong. And to be honest, like the frame strength's not even really the big thing coming into question here. It's the axle. Like,
exactly.
Like the next question, if it's a mechanic, is like, what if the surfaces aren't flat? Is there a facing tool, or the axle doesn't line up? It's like, well, if the axle doesn't line up, there's bigger problems. Facing, I totally understand where people are coming from with that, but again, the axle needs to go into this. So if it's not flat, the axle won't go into it. So there's way bigger problems. You know what I mean? So the whole UDH standard and how that all needs to be set up, it's adhered to in the same way the mech is. So it has to be straight for that to work, because the UDH has the thread for the axle in it. But yeah, frames have been sweet. Frames are strong. Frames are plenty strong. And I can attest you from how much I land sideways on my e-bike that my axle is good to go on that thing. And the strength is there. Yeah.
What were your thoughts, Mick, when you first kind of saw this pop up?
It's not as good as my Gearbox.
Yes.
No. That's said in jest. No,
No, it's not.
no. Hey, my gearbox didn't bloody work at Rotorua, so you're only as good as your last race.
I don't think any of the downhillers are racing this stuff either, so you're all good, mate.
No. Yeah, no. I thought it was like leaps and bounds upon like SRAM's, upon its predecessor, which is really cool. Like anytime there's kind of I don't know, change in a positive direction. I think that's a great thing. To be honest with you, like I'm not as well versed with the nitty gritty like Lachy would be, but yeah, the stuff that I've seen, it's sick. And like I was saying, like it's just leaps and bounds better than its predecessor. Like for the last 10 or 15 years, I guess there's been like incremental improvement, whereas this is like a full step change above. There was some stuff like from an engineering point of view, like skeptical isn't the right word. I don't know what the right word would be. Like I'd just like to know more. And like I said, like I don't really know the nitty gritty like the tech guys at SRAM, but I don't know. I reckon it's cool. I think that SRAM are onto a good thing with Axis, and I said that ever since I first got Axis, and I know Axis has been out for a while, but by the sounds of it, like the integration that this has got with Axis is just that much better. So yeah, I can't see a downfall with that.
I think the other cool thing as well is just on your note of the predecessor. So like original Eagle Axis was just an electronic upgrade for an existing system. So Eagle had been out for 7 years before, you know what I mean? And so it works fine. And I think that's the other thing. A lot of people get their back up because it's like, you guys are trying to say that the old stuff shifted bad. The old stuff didn't shift bad, but it was just a traditional drivetrain where, as I said, you had to use it in a nuanced way to get it to shift properly, you know what I mean? Whereas this is actually the first mountain bike group from SRAM it uses the firmware and the hardware of the derailleur and cassette to work together. And that's what I'm kind of saying, like cassette mapping and the way it shifts and waits for the shift ramp. Like, you know, when you're riding it, like it's kind of always on that downstroke pedal that it ends up shifting kind of for the most part. It's never in like an awkward part of the pedal stroke when you're riding, which is cool. Kind of tailors it to where the rider's stance would kind of be. So it's different. The thing it is, you know, when you do ride it, it's just being conscious of, you know, don't back off the power. Because if you back off the power, I would say it's shifting slow, but it just doesn't feel anything night or day crazy different beyond the fact it's just really smooth. But then when you don't have to back the power off, it's fascinating because you don't need to back off a second to then go into a sprint, or especially I find it the most on like techie climbs. You don't need to back it off that little bit to get it to go up that techie climb. You just keep charging up the thing. Like,
yeah, that's
really
great.
weird.
Because I always found, I don't know. I think that's fantastic because, I'm not saying I had like, I think like, because like I raced BMX for ages and obviously that's just single speed. So there's no gear changing involved, but you're so used to just pedaling 100% everywhere. And that's like the first thing I noticed when I started riding mountain bikes. I'm like, like you were saying, Lachy, like for this to shift nice, kind of got to tilt off the power a little bit. And I think it's one of those things, like with any sort of developments, it's one of those things that you probably wouldn't notice it as much until you go back to the old one. Like you were saying, when you jumped on your gravel bike and it's like, oh, wait, I've got to back off. Like, and that's when I think you probably really notice how much extra power or wattage you just over a period of time that you can put down by not having to back off to shift.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. And then, it's massive. And then there's heaps of spare parts, which I think is cool. which is sick. So like I've got one here, but the cage just comes off, the clutch is on the cage, the guide pullers are on the cage. So if you wreck a cage, then you just buy a new one and then it just goes back on and you screw it on by hand. And then the main plate here and the skid plate are replaceable. It's pretty sick. And then same thing with the cage too, right? So that's the fancy one with the magic wheel. If you have EXO, you can put that on EXO or any of the other ones. You can mix and match if you want to save weight, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. And if you're a shop and you're listening, because I feel we have quite a few people from shops here, please watch the video and please get the app. If you are using the app, you'll find the serial number on the derailleur, which will be printed at the bottom. And once you once you pair that into the system, or not pair it, look it up in the app, it'll take you to all the chain guide and everything. So the chain, I like this. I've spoken to some people recently who don't like this because they like to work things out. It'll tell you your key in your bike, the model, the geometry position as well. So like my lever there's got a high-low and the pivot's got a high-low as well. If it changes the chainstay length, it'll make you put in the input and it'll give you the exact chain length that you need for that chainring size. The app will also then tell you if you can run a different chainring size with that chain length. So the Levo can run a 34 or a 36, and I think from memory it was the same with the pivot. They can run both. So I've heard some people like, don't even change the chainring. There are some setups you can, but the app will tell you with it. But that's your point of call. There's also a chart for it, and then the chains themselves also have a manual which has like the case of the chain has like 126 links and shows you like 4 links down. But if you actually keep the manual's got a little bit you can cut out to go into laminate. I've got it on my toolbox. I think it goes down to 108 links. I always get really confused cutting chains, like with the counting of links. I just don't think I can count in twos. So and it's in scale, so you just line up to that and then boom, off you go. I haven't seen a chain that's shorter than that yet on a bike. So you're pretty good to go. But I think for me, and having seen in the field, so many issues with setup, whether it be chain length's wrong, B-gap's wrong, which will inherently be wrong if the chain's wrong, chain line, and then obviously the usuals with hangers and everything. Like if you start isolating those touch points where people are having trouble and get rid of them, I think it's freaking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm over having to adjust stuff that's been adjusted wrong, not in a way of like, I'm better than this, but just in the sense of like, this person's had a bad experience because of a setup problem
that they paid for.
That's potentially that they pay for. Sometimes they've done it themselves. A lot of the time they've done it themselves, or a mate's done it or whatever, whoever it is. They've had a poor experience with that product because of it. And it's awesome to now not have that issue with it. You know what I mean? Like the only really adjustment with this is them. Yeah.
I think to SRAM's credit with I didn't know a lot of the stuff you just said, Lachy, but like that, including that, and like when the Axis launch, I think to SRAM's credit, the thing that they've done really well is put a lot of money, but a lot of time and money and research into their software.
Yeah.
Because whether we like it or not, like in the day and age that we're in, the hardware is only one portion of it. And dare I say, probably easier portion of it as well. Having that user interface being seamless is, I think, really good. Like, obviously, they're not the size of the company, but like of SRAM. But I've been really impressed. Like, the electronic shifter box that I'm using in the Gearbox is the Archer. And I was a little bit sort of skeptical when I was buying it because I just never bought anything from them before. I'd heard good things, whatnot. But I've actually been really impressed with how it's been holding up. But like, their biggest asset is the software side of things. Like what they make, like they make a good hardware product. I'm not saying they don't do that. Like that's sweet. But the real value of that company is in their software because, again, to set that thing up is I've been very impressed, and maybe I'm probably a little bit too impressed because I'm not a software guy. Like, I'm shit house with that type of stuff. I think sort of more mechanically, but yeah, it's so sweet. Like, you can pair it with your phone, just jump on the app, and you can tune all your gears, like your trim, all that, like everything, just on your iPhone or your smartphone. And yeah, I'd kind of be screwed with the Gearbox project without that, to be honest with you. Like, I think I kind of understand why they've done it to retrofit to a normal cable system. Personally, I don't know whether I'd do it, because you're adding sort of weight of a controller box down there to get the advantage of shifting, but you've still got sort of a bit of cable. But for the purpose of the Gearbox, honestly, it's like it's tailor-made for it. So anyway, my point was going to be just around, I think that in this day and age, the one thing that some companies are doing really well on, SRAM included, is the software side of things with their products.
They got a massive app team. It's huge.
Yeah, between them and Wahoo are like the best.
Yeah,
it's hard to beat those two. I mean, I updated a guy's software for him in Derby while we were getting the shuttle bus up. Like, it just connected, did the thing. It was easy. Like, it's just so good.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I think the big thing too, and I think a lot of people forget it, and like, I've said a few talks with mechanics lately that kind of not got me down. I'm just like, with stuff, and it's like, but like, everyone at SRAM rides, and like, even to the engineers who made this, like, I know they all ride, and they've made this to benefit riders and themselves. And I think people do forget that with whatever the big brand can be sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, everyone just wants everyone to have a good time riding. That's kind of it.
How do we know that, though, if they're not on YouTube?
Exactly. No, it's just, it's a funny one. But yeah, like, if anyone has any questions, like, slide into the DMs. I'm more than happy to send whatever assets around anyone. And if anyone lives down my way and wants to have a spin on my bike, like, please feel free. It's unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it is a product you need to actually like ride it to get it. And if you're a mechanic and you want to play with the setup side of things on my bike too, like, please feel free to, because it's the same thing too. It's a bit of a mind fuck, and Dan, you'll be in the same boat. Have you set one up yet? Like,
me?
Yeah.
No, they don't put them on triathlete bikes, so I haven't touched one yet.
They put them on tracks though. Anyway,
sorry.
They put them on tracks.
I don't work at it. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Maybe your rail rocked up with it. I don't know. Anyway, when you put it on, it probably took me about 7 or 8 times of either putting ones on or putting it on and off to be confident in it, if that makes sense. So it's so quick. When you do it, you're just like, what have I missed? Yeah. And it was the same thing I remember happening when it went to ETAP on the road when it was 11 speed, from dealing with cables before on 2x systems. They were like, okay, like, I've now got an hour left up my sleeve. What did I fuck up? Because it just didn't take long enough. And it's the same with that. You're just like, oh, like, that was too easy. What have I fucked up? You know what I mean? Like, I think for the average user, they're like, that's sweet, it's all good. You know what I mean? But I think for mechanics, through the mindset of like, you don't need to straighten the hanger when you take the thing off. You don't need to get a guide out to check the B gap. Like, there's just a lot that you don't need to do that it kind of wigs you out a little bit. You're just like, oh, I've definitely done this wrong.
Do you have a price on the skid plate and the outer thing? Do you know what they cost Australian?
I don't really look. I might be able to get such information.
Because that's essentially the new... I've never heard this term as much as I have in the last 3 months. It's the new mechanical fuse, right?
I have not heard this term.
Really?
Oh,
I got told so many times. The derailleur hanger is the mechanical fuse. It is supposed to break so that nothing else breaks.
Mechanical fuse, yeah, right. RD cover dash skid kit for XX is apparently $40.
Okay, so around the price of a hanger.
And then I'll see if I got the cages as well.
I think cage is like 150, 200-ish.
Yeah, I'm sure the cage is going to be more. But I just think it's awesome you can replace it. But anyway, and the clutch is part of it too. You know what I mean? Because like at the end of the day, you're going to hit. You are going to hit your cage into something at some point. Hopefully you don't. You know what I mean? But you know, like that being said, mine's on the floor, and then that thing's fucking copped a beating, like a massive beating, and it's perfectly fine.
Have you watched the Fanatic bikes where they
good.
drop the weights into it?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so good. And then did you see the follow up on Instagram with Chris Mandel?
No.
So they did a follow up with it. So it broke at those plates, and then he came in and they had the kit for the replacement skid plate and link plate.
Okay.
And it was fixed after that.
Sick. Yeah.
It all worked, you know what I mean? Which just crazy, you know what I mean? Like, I think the last time I remember stuff being that rebuildable was Campy, to be honest. Or maybe the original 10-speed red, you could rebuild quite a bit of stuff on that, but yeah, probably more Campy-esque, I think than anything. Yeah. Yeah, I can't see the cages on here. But yeah, anyway, if anyone wants to have a go or has questions, slide into the DMs. It's amazing. Change your life.
What's sliding into your DMs or the SRAM stuff, Will?
No, the SRAM stuff. No, I'll just bore you with tech stuff. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a hard one to, I've like spoken about it so much now, and it just, as I said, it just does jobs. So I'm still amazed by it, but I honestly don't know how to articulate it to people in words, and it is something you need to ride. And it's such a cop out to say that, because it's like, oh, I'll have to go buy it to try it. But it's like, you could go try it at a shop too, but like, you just kind of have to. Like, you can watch as much stuff as you want on it, and that shifting under load thing, you're like, oh, I'm sure I can. And then you actually write, like, oh, fuck, I actually can, like, full load on this thing. So yeah, if you've got a local shop that you can have a spin on it, or you've got a mate or whatever, I would suggest doing so, because it's awesome. Yeah,
I don't want to, because I don't.
You notice it.
I don't want to spend the money on it, because I know if I ride it, I'll want it even more. So
yeah, like now, even my 51, which I love, and I'm not going to get rid of that bike because it's awesome. But even that today, I was just like, I'm so used to the other stuff now that it shifts fine. But when you are in those high loads, especially on a gravel bike with where I kind of ride, like there are the little pinchy, sandy climbs and stuff, you're just like, oh, this would actually be way better. Like, I just can't drill that thing out. But yeah.
Yeah, sick. Steering dampeners.
Yes.
Dampers that you wanted.
Dampers.
I got a steering dampener. It's attached to my faucet out the back there. It's green, and
if your head's not well sealed, it probably might be a headset dampener.
Yeah. You were talking about the one on. We saw a little pic slide up somewhere of Dan Hooker's pop up.
Yeah,
Nick.
I had a question for Nick with it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I've sat on bikes years ago with like the Hopi style dampers, and I have no idea if this is like that or not. But what is the goal of a steering damper, if you do know what it is? Is it to make the steering interface more rigid, or is it to control steering? If it was to control steering, could you then make a stem adjustment more of a geometry change as opposed to a steering adjustment? Because I hate short stems, but there are some bikes that I would prefer to have a shorter stem on.
Okay, so I guess it's kind of a simple answer, but it's kind of multifaceted. So say like with motorcycles, so you can have a steering damper, and basically you can wind it in the extreme sense. Say like a lot of like freestyle motocrossers will put steering dampers on, so that like if they do a backflip no-hander or something, is that like the bars won't tilt like what's got less of propensity to. And essentially you're just controlling your steering through a hydraulic steering damper. So the more you wind it on, think of like you fork with a heap of compression, like it's just forcing the oil to flow further, or against more resistance. So it's a little bit the same with the steering damper. So that's the extreme sense. So you wind it all the way on, and no matter if you're doing a slow movement or a quick movement, it's going to be stiff. The best one to look at is like Harry Bink, who rides for Nitro Circus, and I'm sure he still does, but yeah, he runs his steering damper like locked out. Like you watch him, say, do like a trick and do a corner at the end of the course to turn around and come back, and it's literally like he's kind of got like almost both feet out, like because the thing doesn't want to turn. But traditionally, like for racing, for motorcycles, same type of principle, but they're more aimed at like speed sensitive. So say like, again, like with your shock or whatever, almost like your higher speed compression. So under normal types of steering, like if you're riding around the car park, the aim is you don't really notice you have the steering damper. But if you're, say, doing like desert racing or something, and you hit something and you start to get to kind of like limit tank slap. So like those fast, harsh movements is if you do like a real fast jank of the steering, is that it'll damp it. So and that's kind of guys like doing desert racing and whatever use them a lot for that exact thing, just to limit tank slap. A lot of guys like on like two-stroke MotoGP, they were a lot more common because you get tank slap real bad, and a lot of it was because of like poor fork design and steering design and whatever as well. But essentially, like in motorsport, typically like motorcycles, that's kind of the premise behind steering dampers. And like I was saying, like for the majority is to tune how speed sensitive it is. Like I'll admit I'm not an expert on mountain bike steering dampers that have been around in the past. From what it looks like from stuff that's come out recently, it's kind of a mechanical device of a steering damper instead of like hydraulically controlled like a motorcycle steering damper. I think one of the reasons why you wouldn't go that route on a mountain bike is mainly due to weight. But yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm pretty sure Harry Binks, that one you're talking about, when they were riding in Dubai and stuff, they had to put it in an esky because the fluid or whatever was inside of it was getting so hot it basically didn't work.
Oh, okay. Right. Potentially.
So yeah, I wonder if that's also some sort of case.
Yeah, I guess, but the easiest way to think about it, I get, not that I've really thought about it like this way before, but speaking about it kind of force you to think. But yeah, it's kind of like your compression damping, just not up and down, but side to side. You could wind a heap of low speed on and it's just choking up the shop, irrespective of what you're doing, like whether you're just here in the shop. If you have no low speed and heaps of high speed compression, is that it'll feel pretty plush until you do something real harsh to it. But, anyway.
That's what kind of attracted me to the one that Booker's got, and the one I kind of liked about it is that slow speed stuff, it's free and moving, and then high speed stuff, it seems to just slow down, barely moves.
I'm not very well versed with the product, I've got to admit, but if they are doing that, like dynamically controlling the damping through like speed sensitivity, then I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, the thing is, to be honest, I have no idea. There's no information about it, to be honest. So
I tried to find all the old stuff on their website and no idea about it. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I tried to look up a bit of stuff. I remember my old flatmate years ago used to have Hopies and swore by them. And we put one on a mate's bike probably 10 years ago. But it was well over my head at that point. I was just like, yeah. But it sounds interesting. Like, yeah, it's something I definitely, just to geek out, like to try. But yeah, if it was something that maybe, the thing that interested me is if it was something that would make a short stem less twitchy, that would float my boat, because I hate anything. I like the whole offset thing. We've discussed many times, Nick. If I don't have the offset thing, I actually go for a longer stem. I go for a 50, which isn't ideal, but it doesn't make the steering too slow. So too fast. But then like the 35s and stuff, I hate them. I hate them so much. But being 5'9" and in the middle of so many different bike brands of sizes, there's a couple of bikes I'm looking at the moment to get another bike for the next podcast. That I'd like to fit on. The large I would fit on better than the small. Than the medium, and I would like to run a shorter stem.
Yeah,
to fit on that large. Anyway,
have you tried the Chris King one? They do it's a bearing just with like thicker grease in it. I think they even just do the grease. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's similar one. It's similar to the style they were using freestyle motor. So it's only got one setting essentially. But yeah, it's just a bearing with real thick grease in it.
I got
pretty much
thick grease here. Yeah.
Yeah, just put some Morgan Blue aquaproof paste in there and she'll be good to go, mate.
Fuck yeah. I still feel it would be twitchy. Anyway, yeah. I was starting to try. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was a pretty new bit of tech I suppose if high pivot's cool again, then it was only a matter of time until OP steering dampers came back. But no, I'm interested. Like, I think if I haven't spoken to Dan about it, but I feel if Dan's running it, and I'm sure I haven't seen it, something that sponsors the team, it obviously has a tangible benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like his bike setup's going to be pretty on point. He seems like that. Like, it'd be pretty dialed.
Yeah. Yeah. I know with a few things of his, he's pretty like meticulous with setup stuff, and will time stuff and test stuff to make sure it's working.
Did you guys look at anything cool from Sea Otter? Just out of interest.
It was cool things, and there was also, I think it was like
Mick
the first day or whatever. Oh, sorry, you go.
Mick loved that new Polo from what I saw.
Oh, yeah.
I actually didn't see it, to be honest with you. I've kind of been keeping to myself recently.
That makes sense.
The first day of Sea Otter, there was like, I think I counted it, there was 14 product releases on one day. And I felt so bad for any brand that decided to launch something on that day, because there was so much shit. I was just like, but let me get down on people. I can see what I was looking at.
It was pretty.
I didn't want to talk about the poll.
It was pretty funny. Everyone's like, "What do you think about TRP launching on the same day as Axis as Transmission?" I'm like, that was probably one of the best things they've ever done. And no one understood why. And it's because like 15 people messaged me that day about TRP. No one messaged me about Transmission.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know if that was on purpose or what, because I have no idea who the TRP people are, but I definitely feel it's not a bad one. You know what I mean? Like, you've got a drivetrain that's up here in terms of price, and it's so top tier. Like, you know, it's not anything but top tier. And then you've got something that's at the other end of the scale was not bad. Oh, the Yeti, that was it. The Richie's Proto Yeti. That thing makes me ridiculously happy. And I really, really want to see it. And then I've noticed that MRP also had that new high pivot idler guide for the lower pulley, which is awesome because a lot of people don't run lower guides. And if you don't run a lower guide on high pivot, you don't get enough chain wrap in your chain ring, and then the whole thing slaps around and makes a whole bunch of noise. And those guides as well actually reduce the chain growth slightly because it's moving where the chain pivots from at the top end. So things definitely slap around a lot less. So that also got me excited. But yeah, that Proto Richie's looks sick. Just that the Eddie e-bike, just for me, ticks so many boxes, and I tried so hard to get one, but just not being a bit too hard in the end. But yeah, the Sixfinity, I think it's called, not the Fox stanchion thing. I just think looks freaking awesome. Yeah, I don't like the idea of having more stanchions in stuff if you don't have to have them. And that seems to tick that for me. So, yeah, it'd be cool if that light comes out.
Yeah, I think it is going to come out, from what I understand.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard some things from different people with it, which I won't go into detail with. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it could end up being like the Jekyll thing, right? Where they had it down to like to prove enduro bike, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited to see Richie Rude racing World Cups, possibly.
Yeah. That's sick.
For Jerry's Mad Horses or whatever it was called for that team. That's really cool. That's the team he raced for in Oceanus. So.
Really?
Yeah. His sponsors, Jerry Mad Horses. This is sick.
That's awesome.
Because he's not sponsored by, he's not on the team for Yeti Downhill. Like, it's a privateer, right? Like.
Yeah, right. I didn't think about that. So what? Oh, is that why he would race Oaks to get points?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he went to get points. He was in Queenstown before that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't realise that. I knew Sam was going there for points too, but I just didn't think about Richie. I just assumed Yeti was like, yeah, he's a big bag of money. We've got a team.
On that point, how much of a boss is Sam Hill? That made me so happy that he won Oshie's.
Yeah.
So fucking stoked. Like, fucking stoked. And then like that fucking line he had through that chute. It's just, yeah.
It looks big on the video.
Yeah. Like, I'm just really excited to see Sam have a good year. And by a good year, I mean like Sam having fun doing Sam Hill things. You know what I mean? Like, I think regardless of results, like if I can just see Sam drifting across through some flat grassy corners and just tearing shit up, like it's going to be a fucking awesome season.
Yeah.
So, no, it's good. It's really good. Because at Threadbow, like he was still coming back at Cannonball, like he was still coming back from his shoulder thing. I think that might have been like 6 or 8 weeks before he had a shoulder recon. So,
yeah, it was in January.
I think a lot of people were like, oh, where's Sam? Like not going that well. It's like, well, like it's kind of his first race back after a pretty decent schedule.
Did you watch? Sorry,
I was going to say, you know this as well as anyone, Lachy too. But in any elite race, whether it's a big race or a small race, but any elite race, like if you're not feeling 100% you, like it's so tight. It can be as simple as like if you got a cold or something. If you're just not feeling 100% you, you know. Whereas that made me stoked because I was like, fuck yeah. And just watching him ride, it was like, that's Sam Hill riding.
Yeah. They did have some testing not too long ago as well. So I think that kind of helped him as well, get everything pretty dialed in.
Did you see the footage of Troy following him at Threadbow?
Yeah, that's sick.
And he just like opens up in certain spots and you're like, oh.
Yeah. There was that line into Bunny Walk. I was just like, what?
Dumb.
The actual fuck. Like it made so much sense to be honest, I'm actually surprised he didn't pull away from Troy more, but that's not a line there. Like if anyone's ridden Threadbow, like that's just not, it's not like he's riding off the track. It's not a Euro line, but it's just not somewhere that like you would logically ever be like, I'm just going to cut inside through that. Like
it was ridiculous. Dumb. Yeah.
And that's all I want to see. Like that's it. You know what I mean? Like just cool shit like that.
It's going to be rad. I'm excited. Yeah. You obviously didn't pay attention to Sea Otter, Mick. So you're not.
Yeah, I did. I just didn't really geek out on it, I guess.
Yeah. So no WTB saddles with handles in them for you? No.
I saw that and I thought it was an April Fool's, and then someone wrote a review on it. I can't remember which site it was. It's saying like, oh, it's actually a really good idea. And then I rode my e-bike on Saturday, and it's like I don't know, like I've got a dropper collar there. Maybe it's because it's got the battery thing there. It holds better, but I've never an issue that I've had where I'm like, I need a saddle, and I would still not be able to hold my seat like that really anyway. I don't know, like Yeah, maybe my wrists are just fucked the more I think about it. But like, yeah, I thought that was an April Fool's. I legitimately thought that was April Fool's. Yeah.
I can't get around it. I mean, probably some people love it, which is sick.
Yeah.
But I don't.
I'm stoked to see Otter's back as well. And I'm stoked that it is a product release time. Like, I remember it used to be the big thing, and it's probably been 2 or so years that it's been dead. It was sick to see the Aussie boys in the dual slalom. That was rad.
Mhm. That was
It
cool.
was a shame for Luke crashing, but yeah, fucking awesome for Ryan as well, which was sick. And you know, from what seems like it was on a totally new bike for him because it's on that SB 135, 27.5 bike. So it's pretty impressive to just, not that anyone really jumps on the dual slalom bike much, but brand new bike, get that done. Pretty epic. The orange Instagram video for the new Strange bike with which what they were calling the filing cabinet was the funniest.
That's sick.
The funniest shit of all the releases. Like, yeah, I've had many oranges throughout the years. A big fan of orange, but I do love the joke of calling them a filing cabinet. And then to make your storage box in the frame called the filing cabinet was amazing. And they did like a stop motion of all the stuff that went in it, and they made like a cup of tea in it. And I was like, oh, like they just couldn't hit that marketing any better. That was awesome.
They do cool shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty sick. And purple Chris King stuff. That was probably the biggest highlight for me.
Can't get around it, eh?
Oh, you're not into it?
No.
I thought you used to be an X-Made. Purple profile hub, same color.
No.
Really? Oh, dude, I love it. Yeah.
Can't get around it.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying I'd own purple, but I don't mind it. I reckon it looks pretty cool if it's done right.
Yeah. It's a choice though. That's the only thing I would find hard with it is if I know if I bought Kings, I'd be hanging on to those Kings for a very long time. And then if I was changing frames, then the purple would go with everything. So that would be a hard choice. If I was buying Kings, I probably would actually just buy like black or black and gold or something. But it's still pretty sick.
Especially when you change your bikes every 2 months as well. Like,
well, that's the thing. And then it's like another choice of like, what color do I get so it doesn't clash with my hubs? Yeah.
That's all good. Nothing jumped out at me usually other than the handle in the seat, the filing cabinet, and some clunkers.
That's kind of it. There wasn't, I don't know, there was some cool stuff, but yeah. I'm sure if the industry would have been sick, like everyone seeing each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It would have been, I've never been to a sea otter. I've always wanted to go. I was very close to going last year. Yeah, I don't know. I keep saying I want. It's kind of a bit of a prick of a time of season for people from the southern hemisphere. I feel because we're just coming out of summer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it always seems to be clashing with events. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying that for us, it always seems to be like, oh, it's just not the right time. But I think I'm going to make an effort to go maybe next year.
Yeah.
Because this year looked really good. I was like kind of getting a bit of FOMO, but
it's on my bucket list. But you'd race dual slalom, wouldn't you, Mick? 100% you'd do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to go race everything. Yeah. I actually got a new bike just the other day. I got a Trek lifestyle bike.
Fuck yeah,
Chicken.
On brand as well. Check you out.
Saw that. Looks sick.
I did see that. I was wondering whose it was.
Well, it's Harriet's old one.
Okay.
So I bought her frame.
That's it.
Yeah, pretty impressed, hey. I took it for a maiden voyage just before we jumped on the phone. Yeah, it's pretty sick. I've kind of been abusing myself on a hardtail in slalom races the last couple of years. And when they're good, they're good. But when they're not good, so like we've been talking about building, and we're going to build like a Trinity, like slalom rig. But obviously we're quite busy with everything we've got going on. But as soon as I jumped on this one, I was like, this is really, really nice. And the other thing that always never ceases to amaze me, even though I know why and I understand why, but it still just seems counterintuitive that you can. I'm not necessarily saying this is a trek, but like how you can design a bike that's got better pedaling efficiency than a hardtail, like because your anti-squat figure, like when you pedal, it forces the rear wheel into the ground. And I don't know, just the way some small dual suspension bikes generate speed, it never ceases to amaze me. So yeah, very impressed.
Slope bikes are sick. Like so sick.
Yeah, this one, when you jump on a bike and it just kind of makes sense to you, that's a bit like this one. I'm pretty stoked on it. So still a few things I need to do to it, but yeah, pretty stoked on having some rear end traction. So
I think especially for speed, like I was watching a lot of Speed and Style when I was there.
Oh, you're on mute, Lachy.
Oh, it wasn't me? I thought it was me.
Oh.
I think his headphones are dead.
His headphones are dead.
That's why he can't hear us.
Yeah, I was watching heaps of Slope Style, but he's looking at our mouths.
Yeah. We could just talk so much shit about him then. Slope bikes. Did you over rotate or under rotate a backy in the speed?
No, I did like a cork flip, like an under flip, and over rode. I was pretty disappointed. I haven't stacked a cork flip before. Well, I'll just go back to the start of that Speed and Style event. So the last jump, like the last ramp jump, was pretty short. So on the very first day of practice of that event, anyway. So I don't know what it was, Friday or something. I dropped in. I think I was the first rider to do the left lane. And the first ramp, man, like it was so soggy, like so wet. And like I tagged the first ramp pretty bad, just straight jumped it and like 50-50 the fuck out of it because I felt like I was going pretty quick. And then just like the flat gravel before it just was so fucking wet. So came around the next couple of corners and got to the last ramp jump. And the first one being wet, I didn't pedal into it, but I squashed the step down before it and kind of, I wasn't going slow. And because it was like 8:30 or something in the morning, like the sun was right in my eyes. I couldn't see the ramp like at all, just kind of see the lip. So I was kind of shitting myself that I was going too slow. So I just pulled back and went full to flat, like totally missed the down ramp. And went straight to flat. It was actually like I was a bit concerned when I was in the air. I was like, oh, this is going to be really, really bad. And the thing that went was I actually stripped my crank splines off. So both cranks just went to the bottom.
That's what happened. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the mechanical fuse, as you would say.
Your bottom bracket.
Yeah. I actually only last night I realised that my handlebars and my hardtail were bent, and I actually reckon it could have been in that too, because they weren't bent before Crankworks. Anyway, so yeah, fast forward to racing. Like every time I came into those ramps, they did pull them back, but probably only like a foot or so, which didn't really make much of a difference, particularly because the course was getting drier, so it felt the same, if not shorter. And every single time I came into them, I was dragging a fair bit of brake. And in one of my race runs, came into it. I was next to Baxter and dragged the same amount of brake, but I was probably just going faster around the corner, I guess. And dragged about the same amount of brake. But as soon as I started going up the ramp, I was like, I'm just going too fast. So still flipped, still corked, came around, and I just watched the down ramp just vanishing under me. I was like, fuck. But, somehow I didn't have too bad of a crash. Like I looped out, but kind of went straight to Mars and sort of ran out of it, which was somehow really lucky. But, over Owie. Anyway.
Back with us, Lachy. Nah.
No, he's not. His microphone might have gone on the computer.
Was it in his Apple? I mean, that's an Apple product, so.
No, I was on my AirPods.
There you
go.
There we go.
Like died.
Yeah.
But they're live, like they're working, but they're not connecting.
Yeah. How sick was it watching Mike Ross take the W?
Yeah, sick.
Yeah,
that was fucking rad.
That was very good. Well deserved. Obviously anything can happen in an event. But I remember saying kind of early on in that event, like into practice, I was like, I've forgotten who I said it to, but I'm like, all going well. Like if he can stick everything, I can't see anyone beating Mike. Obviously there's tough competition there, like Cade and that were fucking flying, but some of the tricks Mike was doing, like Cashy to fronty Superman, I'm like, if he holds it together and can stick that run, I can't see anyone beating him. And he held it together, so stoked as.
A lot of stuff's coming together for him, which is awesome, I think.
Yeah.
Like really, really awesome. The stuff he was doing last year on socials was freaking insane. Like, was it the Cashy off the like a flat deck or whatever? Like, huge. I mean, and now he's he's doing the whole not working thing, and I'm stoked for him, man. I'm stoked to see. Have we had like an Aussie slopestyle person?
Yeah. Well, I guess
Darren Okov from WA.
Yeah, okay.
Alan Hepburn and Michael Shonin from Adelaide. They used to ride Crankworks back when you had like the split line. You could do like that 30-foot drop and all that weird shit. So,
it'd be sick to see Mike. Sorry, there's too many Rosses in my life. Mike, at like Crankworks with Sir in a couple of years, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think he's on the way. And Highline was tough for those boys. It was so windy. So windy. So, should we do some listener questions just before Mick falls asleep?
I am actually very tired, in case you can't notice.
I was thinking it's getting
overtime.
Quick, easy one. Should you degas the syringe before bleeding dot breaks?
It's not taught anymore, and no, I don't, and we don't teach it. Well, not we. SRAM doesn't teach it anymore. The first factor in that is you want fresh dot fluid, as fresh as can be. Don't use the jar that's been in the workshop or in your cupboard for over a month, I would say. If it's been opened over a month, then I would safely dispose of said fluid. It'll have a higher water content, which can lead to greater bubbles. But if you think about with the degassing thing, like you're just causing cavitation of fluid, which will always be there. So you could sit there all day until the cows come home and you're just going to keep making bubbles and making them shorter because of fluids under vacuum. And your brakes are never going to be under vacuum. So, don't do it. Just get fresh dot grease. Fresh dot fluid, and you'll be good to go. My favorites are either Maxima, SRAM, or Finish Line. But you can literally use any of them because they're all under the same standard.
Maxima stuff's good.
Yeah, I like the Maxima stuff. The little bottles I might have some that are like yay big. But it's like in terms of like they pretty much do a break in a bit, you know what I mean? So you just don't end up having an open container that you waste most of it because you don't use it fast enough.
I think this is from Mick. It's from Ronan Burke. He would like an educational talk about hose clamps. I think this has something to do with your gearbox, maybe.
Yeah, I think I've already answered them.
Yeah.
I have some proper designed clamps coming, but yeah, the hose clamp from Repco had to get me out of trouble. have broken one, so I'm on to my second.
What's your favourite brand?
To be honest with you, mate, it's Repco. These are Repco house brands. Probably not the best quality. I put about 5 Newton meters on the torque wrench, and the original one sort of sheared the slits out, which wasn't the best quality. But it was only a $3.70 replacement, so not a huge investment. Yeah.
Not gone down the titanium route or anything. 3D printer.
No.
Williams hose clamps. And second to last one, what shifter are you using on your gearbox, Mick? Because TJ Smalls doesn't like the grip shift on everyone else's.
No, it's definitely not a grip shift. You don't have to worry about that. No, I'm using the full Archer components stuff. So, so they're for anyone, I guess that doesn't know what the Archer is. I might have sort of explained it before, but essentially what they do is make a wireless conversion kit for your traditional kind of cable shifter and derailleur. So essentially what it is like a stepper motor that you mount to your chainstay, and then you've only got a very short bit of cable from that stepper motor to your derailleur, but the communication from your shifter to that stepper motor is totally wireless via Bluetooth. So it's a pretty neat little setup. And what I've got in the gearbox is that stepper motor mounted basically directly opposing the shift shaft. So it's totally Bluetooth from the shifter to the stepper motor. So I'm using their shifter, which I will say is actually pretty ergonomic. I rate it. It's nothing too flashy, not too much fuckery. It's just it's a paddle. It feels better than an analog shifter, I think. But it's good. Kind of similar to an Axis paddle, but I do realise too, like I was saying before, I'm kind of feeling pretty tired. I do realise I might have skipped some things on gearbox stuff. So if there are any questions about it, I'm happy to fire them off and answer them, even if it's from you two. But.
Thank you. That should be sick. And Lachy, why is there's no setup info for transmission setup on high pivot bikes apparently?
Because you need to do it manually.
Okay.
Because you need to have a guide. Yeah, it's actually a good question. It's in the manual. If you look up Eagle transmission manual, it'll take you through to the new next gen manuals, which are not a PDF. They're like a live website, and then each little thing's tabbed through, which is awesome. That's actually, I don't make them, but the people in the team I work with make them. And I think they're freaking amazing. But it runs you through it. So you set up on those pretty much like you set up a traditional Eagle bike. So big, full compression of the shock, one link of overlap, and off you go. But you need to make sure there's a lower guide, and the lower guide jammed all the way up. And I believe it's too hard to have an exact measurement because all the guides change on that. So there are high pivot bikes which will have UDH. It is a traditional way of sizing the chain with those.
And on another note with high pivot for transmission is you need a different idler pulley.
Different idler pulley?
Because it's a 55 mil chain line, not a 52.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, like I haven't played with a high pivot at all on them, but
You need to space it out.
I know the Jekyll was sealed. Actually, that was a UDH. Yeah, so can you just use spaces on Forbiddens or something, or is it a whole new like?
They have a new idler wheel.
Yeah. Cool.
I will neither confirm nor deny of a bike I know that is perhaps running a 3mm washer behind it.
Yeah, okay.
It all works fine.
Yeah, interesting. That's good to know. Yeah. Yeah, there are a few little like nuancy things like that yeah, it needs to all be in line. And if anyone has a question of the chain line, I think shoot a message. But the chain line is now 2.5mm out that way.
Yeah, high idlers. It doesn't surprise me that they don't have a tuning guide for bikes with high idlers because there's so much variability there. Traditionally speaking, like your rearward axle path, and then like you don't like high idler. It's not guaranteed to be just fixed off the main frame. Like you could have iTrack like us, or it could be fixed off the swing arm, which is greatly going to change how much chain growth you've got, whatever. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know, like with all the stuff with the chain links, like they've all worked with the OEMs with it. Like there's quite a big process with getting that chain link stuff in. Like they're not just going onto the geometry on say the Trek website to get that chain length. Like there's a lot more to it than that. So there's a lot to it, exactly as Mick said. And then there's also variable with like the guide, because like they could do the measurement with, say, an MRP guide, which is different to the new one with the wheel or something as well. Like that'll also drastically change it too. So there's just quite a bit to it. But yeah, it does work on high pivots. But yeah, it's actually the one bike, not the one, there's a lot of bikes I haven't done it with, but it's a setup I haven't done myself on those. But I've read the manual a few times on it.
Sure.
Yes. Sick. Well, I think we call it a night. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Nice. Thank you. I'm going to go have a bath with a bath bomb. So my night's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Lush today, so life is good.
I can't go into that story.
Why?
It just makes me sneeze, makes my eyes
Yeah. I'm the same in like perfume stores. I got the last flight, got just some perfume, and it set me off real bad. Yeah, it's fucked.
Mick's never been to either one of them.
I might have forcefully. Yeah. I don't, what is Lush?
It's like a bath bomb shop. It's fucking amazing. It's so good.
Right. Hopefully we're not losing listeners here.
We're just doing bath bomb talk for a whole episode one day.
Treat yourself and have a good bath. Anyway, that's different.
on that note, I haven't had a bath in years, man. And I actually had to
you're a bit smelly and right.
I've just done a race, you dickhead. I hadn't had a bath in years.
The rain at Roto is the closest it's been cleaned for years.
I had a big crash the other day, like scorpioned, and I actually got out pretty lucky, I think, because I landed on a bunch of rocks on my back and cut the shit out of my back and whatever, and scrounged some Epsom salts and chucked them in the bath. Did me wonders, man. I reckon I would have been a lot more stiff if I hadn't done that. But yeah.
That's the main reason I have a bath. I have bulk Epsom salts in them. I'm always low on magnesium, so it's just another way for me to ingest it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have a big crash, listeners, onto it.
Sick.
Yeah.
Good note to end on.
Yeah.
Baths and bath bombs. Brad.
Thanks for organising it, Darren.
No worries. We will catch up soon.
Yep. Sweet as.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks for listening to that one, guys. Absolutely epic episode. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a bunch of information there, a lot to digest. But yeah, as per usual, Mick and Lachy break it down a lot. Again, thanks to our supporters, Trek, Franked, Fist, Shred, Lead Out Sports, Tailored Trails and Dirt Surface. These guys offer all the best products, even capped out caps as well. I forgot them. God damn it. Anyway, they offer the best products. Head over there, support them because they support us. Use the code Beyond the Tape or Beyond the Tape 10. Get yourself a bit of a discount. If you don't want to throw any cash around, even on the merch store, the easiest way to kind of help support this podcast, and it's free, is to tell your mates, tell your mum, tell your grandma, tell your dog, tell a polar bear, tell whoever about the Poddy and share it around, share it on Insta and spread the love. Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Until then, have a bunch of fun.